What's up, everyone? Coach Tony here. In this training, we're going to be breaking down stellar letters of recommendation. This is how you should be going about asking for your letters of recommendation, the timelines, so you know when to be asking for each one, and how to maximize your chances of getting the best letters of recommendations that you can. If it's our very first time meeting, my name is Coach Tony. I'll be your college admissions guide in this training here today. A little quick background. I've been doing college admissions now for 16 years, starting my journey off as a former UC Berkeley admissions reader. So when kids applied to Berkeley, I was one of the folks who read the application, recommended yes and no to students on the back end. And as a result of that, we said yes to some, said no to a lot more. You start to understand what's really important in the admissions process. And doing so, I've actually been reading a bunch of letters of recommendations. Back in it, there was students who will be getting letters of recommendation. We won't talk about that too much on this call, but there'll be a future call where we will break that down a little bit more detail. I've served as a scholarship recommender as well too on the committee. Some of you guys may know the big one. It's the Gates Millennium Scholars Program, the one that was a full ride. I was one of the readers for that one with letters of recommendation. So not only have I been teaching letters of rec, I've been behind the scenes evaluating these as well too. So a lot of the insights in this training is going to be a lot of firsthand accounts that we've been sharing with our students to maximize their results. Okay, so let's go ahead and start first with the first piece, what are letters of recommendation, right? So letters of recommendations are letters that students will get from their teachers, their coaches, their mentors that they will send over to the colleges. Typically, this is for college applications. Sometimes these are also for jobs, for internship opportunities. They might ask for letters of recommendation, but in general, a lot of these will be around the purpose of college admissions. And kind of what letters of recommendations are is like another account of who the student is, right? So the student will be submitting their applications, again, whether you're doing summer program, internships, college applications, right? For us as training, I'll just say college applications, keep it simple, right? They also want some external feedback from someone who knows the student well. So that's what letters of recommendations are. Let me kind of clarify that a little bit to make this a little easier for you guys to understand that this is read in addition to the application. This is not meant to vouch for the student. A lot of families, a lot of students actually do this, and this is why I think over 90% of the letters of rec I have read as an admissions, as scholarship committee, it were terrible, or not because the letter was bad. No, recommenders tend to say always nice things about the student. The issue is that as a reader, I'm trying to learn more about the student. What else can I add to the profile of the student to be like, yes, that's the one we want for our program, for our school there. So what I'm looking for is not to just vouch for the student. So like, put yourself in the admission side, right? So if you read an application, a student's applications, and you saw they were really, really good in grades, right? Number two, in addition to them being really good, and they were very, very involved in activities, tons of amazing activities. Then they ask their recommender, and the recommender says, oh my God, I love Johnny. Johnny was a pleasure to have in my class. He did great. He aced all his exams. I look at the teacher. Look, they got all A's as well too. So it matches, right? Then the teacher says, oh yeah, I know he played soccer. He was great. He was a team captain for his team. His team led himself to victory. I look at the activity section. I see that Johnny also wrote that he was soccer team captain. I'm like, oh, got it. And that the teacher also read like, oh my God, and this student's amazing, right? You gotta take him. You will regret it if you don't take this student to your school. That's what every single recommender typically says, right? Always nice things about the student, but usually most of those things are exactly the same things that the reader is exposed to already on the application itself. So if you were a reader, if you're on the reader side, what are you learning about the student? right? What's something else that's learning about the student that you don't already know? That's why most of letters of recommendation suck because they don't tell me anything new. They just say nice words about the student. And usually when I read the applications, I already know the student's great. That's why I'm reading letters of recommendation to kind of figure out something else to teach me more about the students there. So that's the first big takeaway for you guys is number one, again, these letters are made to enhance, to add on to your application. They are not to double dip, right? It is not to vouch for you. And a lot of people are going to write it wrong if you don't teach them how to write it correctly. We'll talk about that in a little bit, right? So let's talk about timelines next. So in terms of a timeline, when should we be asking for letters of recommendations and how, right? When and how, and also who. Let's do when, how, and who, right? So first one is when. Again, this is for the context of a college application, right? If you're applying for an internship, certain summer programs will ask for this as well too. Certain jobs you're applying for might ask for them as well too. So those are those data are kind of scattered all over the place, but for the purpose of this answer, this is you're applying to colleges that you know will be asking for letters of recommendation. So I asked earlier, we are recording this live Zoom to a group. So if you are joining us again, go ahead and drop a hi in the chat. Let me know what grade you guys are in. If you're watching this from the future, this is pre-recorded, right? So basically, a lot of the families who were joining a little earlier told me they're in like 10th, 11th, 9th grades, right? So the best time to ask for letters of recommendation is going to be the end of 11th grade. So the end of junior year is when you would want to ask for these letters of recommendation. So anyone who said junior right now in the chat, and right now, thank you for chiming in as well too. 11th grade is when you'd want to ask for them. So what do? You ask at the end of the year, right? There's no need to ask a lot earlier, just ask at the end of the year, right? Now the question is who? Who do we ask, right? And this is the big thing a lot of people don't understand, or they think the wrong things, right? So some of the families we talk to, they're trying to pick, oh, I know this fancy professor who I talked to this one weekend, and they told me they'll write me a great letter of recommendation. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. How long have you known this person for? And the student was like, oh, yeah, I met him over the weekend. This one day, there's some fancy thing. Or, oh, yeah, I used to work at this internship thing. I didn't see the CEO, but they say they'll write me a letter of recommendation as well too. So a big no-no is a lot of people try to pick someone with a fancy title, a fancy name, a fancy title, someone who doesn't know them too much, but they just have like the signature, right? Is very wow, right? When it comes to that, right? Readers do not care who the person is. Again, maybe in your world, they are a big deal. For me, most people that when students tell me, oh my God, I have this professor so-and-so write me, like, I'm like, who's that? And you're like, you don't know who he is? I'm like, no, if I don't know, most of the readers don't know who they are as well too. Because at the end of the day, as this is a sad fact of life, we're all kind of nobodies, right? We're just going along the process as well too. So you cannot rely on someone's brand name to help you. That is not what you're looking for in a letter of recommendation from a recommender. Instead, who you want to ask someone who knows you very well, right? Someone who can talk about you, who can advocate for you, who can tell the reader stories about you outside of their traditional context with you. What does that mean? So let's say, for example, you want to ask your math teacher. Like for me, if I was to go back in time and think back, I'd ask my math teacher, right? He knew me, he saw me as well too. He knew I was really good in class, right? He was my teacher, right? He knew that. But in addition to that, he knows me a lot more. He actually helped me go. For those who know my story, I actually was a tutor. I was a tutor in high school. He helped me with my first tutoring student, and I started getting really big, right? Doing tutoring over there as well too. So he saw my growth there. he saw me helping others firsthand. I started volunteering at the after school programs and I helped students there as well too. He saw me when I went to the college math. I finished all the high school math. I actually went on to college math. That's how I know this college math recommendations we can tell students. We help recommend classes. He knew that journey of me too. He knew my parents. He knew my dad. He knew my mom. He had their numbers. They talked as well too. He knew me a lot more than just school, right? And just my classes. So when it comes to picking someone who knows me, he'd be someone really, really high on the list that he knows me outside of just school. Because if you pick someone who just knows you, right, in school and plays devil's advocate, what's the most they know about you? They'll just say this student was great to have in class, right? I loved having them. They were awesome. They were nice, blah, 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 blah. But a lot of things that you probably already said already in your applications. So you want to pick someone who knows you very well. Little star though, little asterisk, little caveat here. When it comes to certain private schools, just a heads up. So certain private schools will be asking you for specific teachers or specific people. So when you're applying to colleges, again, this is one you should know your college list, that you can look up the requirements before you kind of go about the whole process, right? That's why we tell students you should know by junior year, kind of the list-ish, right? The master list, the big list of schools you want to go through. Go through each of their stuff. Their application doesn't really change year after year, especially now. The last big pivot was like COVID year 2020. Nowadays, it's kind of staying kind of normal-ish, right? As well. So look what this year, so any of our juniors, look at the application this year. You're 99% of the time will have the exact same application with the same essays, with the same questions, same requirements, right? And they do change it. For example, the test requirement, the ST, ACT does change a little bit this type of season this year or next year, right? But besides that, pretty much everything's going to stay the same. So when you look at the requirements for the letter of recommendation, see if they ask for a certain teacher, specifically if you fall under a certain major. Like, for example, a lot of private schools will ask for a math or science teacher to be at least one of your recommenders because they do want to see how you perform within the context of an academic setting. Okay, so keeping that in mind, most schools don't, by the way, but there are going to be some schools that do. So keep that in mind there. Okay, but at the end of the day, you pick people who know you best. That means, and notice I didn't say teachers because it doesn't have to be a teacher, right? Some of you guys are in sports, right? Some of our students are in sports, either at their school, at a club level, travel team. Maybe your coach has been with you for years. They've seen you grow up, right? As well, too. Maybe there's someone really awesome to ask for a letter of recommendation. Maybe a lot of you guys are involved in the community, right? A pastor, a priest, a rabbi, right? Maybe they can be someone who's seen your growth, seeing you not just in one capacity, but seeing you in very different modes as well too. Maybe think of your extracurricular activities, things that are outside the school, like scouting, right? Or anything else that's seeing your stuff. People who truly know you, who would you kind of have defend you or vouch for you if you weren't there? That's kind of how you want to think about. You want to ask for like 2 to 3 of them, right? So 2 to 3 folks, keeping in mind your counselor will usually be one of your recommenders by default. But who else? 2, 3 other folks who will be a good recommender. And then in the end of junior year, it's around like April, May, June. You want to go up to them and just ask them, hey, in the fall, I'm going to be applying for applications. I know some of my schools are going to be asking for a letter of recommendation. I would love to ask if you can write me a strong letter of recommendation. That's the key word. You're asking them for a strong, not just any letter. Hey, write me a letter of rec. No, ask them for a strong letter of recommendation is kind of what you want to ask them specifically. Okay. Then they're going to say yes or no, right, to you. Again, a lot of them, if you thought about it, they're probably going to say yes to you. Some people might say no for whatever reason, right? Like for me, I stopped doing letters of rec. I used to. And then all the letters of rec I used to write all end up med school. So I want to quit when it's early. I was like, hey, my streak is perfect so far. All my letters of rec for med school have all gone to med school. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to retire early so my streak stays 100%. But, right, people have their reasons, right? But, right, ask them early, right? And then they're going to say yes or no, hopefully yes. Once they say yes, what you're going to tell them is, awesome, I don't have anything right now, but in the fall, I'm going to reach out to you again and give you everything you need for this process. Is that okay? All right. Two things here. Number one, who asks any recommender at the end of junior year? When do most people ask? They ask during the fall itself. So for you asking this early, what does that kind of plant inside your recommender's head? Wow, this student's thinking ahead. Wow, this student is like really on it. I'm gonna make sure I'm on it for them, right? So we're planting seeds in our recommender because again, at the end, we're trusting them to help us as well too, right? And number two, now you have a gauge of who you're going to ask, ahead of time. You don't have to wait for it as well. Because there are some teachers, again, if you wait till senior year and ask, some teachers might say no, not because they want to say no to you. They just don't have time. They already got asked by a lot of other students that are like, hey, I can do it, but it'll be a generic letter. And we do not want generic letters submitting on our behalf. It's not going to help us. It's not going to hurt us, but it's not going to help us either. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so you ask once in the end of junior year. All right, then flash forward, enjoy summer. When fall of senior year happens, again, you'll know what schools you're applying to when you enter in. If you're applying to the UCs, for example, they don't ask for letters of recommendation, so you're good there. But if you're applying to a private school, right, a lot of private schools or a lot of schools that use the common application, even state schools, there's going to be a section that's once you add in all your schools, it'll be like these schools are asking for this many letters, right? Then you're able to add your teachers or your coaches or your mentors or whoever it is, their emails in. You add your emails in that section, and then they'll send the recommender an email. They'll verify on their end. If they've never done one before, they'll create an account for the first time. For people like me, we have accounts, we just log in to our account, and it'll be every student that has asked us for a letter, and we go ahead and submit it per student that have asked us in that capacity. Okay, so that's how the backend portal looks like from a recommender's point of view. Here is the absolute biggest tip that if you forget everything I said today, here's the one thing to make sure you remember. It's gonna ask you, do you want to waive your right to read the letters? Your answer is yes. You want to waive the rights, right? You do not want to not waive your rights. So you want to waive the rights. What that means is that you're letting the reader, the school know, I'm not going to read the letters before they're submitted, right? Because if you say, I don't waive my rights, that means the letters will come through, you will see it, and then when it's submitted, you still see the submitted version on the back end as well too, right? Why do we not do that, right? Schools want to know, wait, if you want to know so badly, why'd you ask them is number one. And what are you so afraid of what they're going to say on the end, right? Don't do it. So again, highly, highly, highly recommend waive your right, meaning you're not going to see anything, and then submit that, and then you won't see it. Again, if you want to ask your recommend, some recommenders are nice, they'll share with you, or some people like, no, that's a private thing, and they won't tell you. But again, you probably asked them for a reason. Again, hopefully you asked the right person. They're going to help you out the best they can there. Okay. So now let's say you add their profile, and I'd reach out to them and say, hey, Mr., Mrs., Miss so-and-so, I went ahead and added you to the portal. You should get an email very soon. And then two things for them, right? Number one, tell them the deadline. For those of you guys who are applying early action, early decision, the deadlines are way earlier, right? So making sure they are aware of that, because a lot of people, especially new teachers or people who are not in school, right? They don't know the deadlines, right? Is the thing. So that they might be asked by two people, hey, USC has two deadlines, one for regular, which is in January, and they have early, which is November. Right? So depending on which deadline they're doing, the dates are different. So I would make sure they know, hey, I'm doing early action or early decision here, or regular, or whatever it is. Here's the deadline, right? And here's the tip right here. You ask, is it okay if I send you some reminders to make sure like we get it in on time, right? Because again, don't be the weirdo that or weirdest, right? Weirdest, right? That's like, hey, you submitted yet? Hey, you submitted yet? Hey, you submitted yet? your recommend is not going to be very happy with you if you do that, right? But if you ask ahead of time of, hey, is it cool if we remind you on like a bi-weekly basis, and then by this month, I'll probably switch to like a monthly basis. And then if by this week, I'll switch to a daily basis. Is that okay with you? And you're giving them permission first, and they're going to tell you yes or no, right? Again, most people like me, I'm very forgetful. I'll say, yes, go ahead, right? Remind me as much as you want as well, too. That'll help me. I'll help me make sure I get it done as well, too, right? That's tip number one. Tip number two, you tell them this. Awesome. I also compiled a brag sheet for you of everything I've done, everything I've accomplished, and a few stories for you to share based on our relationship, if that's something you want to do. Take a pause. What is a brag sheet? A brag sheet is a very fancy word for resume, but it's more than just a resume. It's resume, it's life events, it's skills, it's things that if someone else, if they read it, they'd be able to brag about you, aka a brag sheet, right? So what you want to do is you want to give them this brag sheet and say, hey, this is me, right? And that's part one. So then you give them like the resume and everything, right? And number two, you're saying, I'm going to recommend a few stories for you to share. Why is that important? Because again, a letter of rec is very unpredictable, right? For me, if you guys have followed us long enough, I like to control as much of the things as we can, right? Admissions is already unpredictable as it is. So the more things you can control, the better likelihood you know you have a shot at certain schools or not, right? The more unknown. So this is why like a lot of families get all mad when they don't get in. But I'm like, tell me about, I never ask for GPA. Tell me about your grades, tell me about your classes. I don't ask about what summer program is. I say, hey, how many hours do you spend per week? Oh, gotcha. And show me your essays, right? It wasn't like, oh, did you write well or not? Just show me what you did. Oh, it's not what we're looking for. So the biggest thing why students don't get in is not because they're not good enough, right? Is because they don't know what the reader is looking for. And if you do what the reader is looking for, that's the key, right? So what you want to do is, what is the reader's looking for from the letter of recommendation, right? And the key here, right, is they're trying to learn new information about you. So, right, if they say anything already that's about you, then that's nothing new. They want to learn new things about you. That's why we tell the recommender, I have a few stories for you that you can include in your prompts, your letter, right? That can make it a lot stronger. And purposely, right? This was nowhere else, right? This was not in your application. That's why you're giving to them, because they can put it on your apps. Okay. Now, on the flip side, people are like, wait, Coach Tony, right? Why would my recommender do that? Let's put on our adult hat on. Let's put on our realistic cap on or now too. Parents, if you were asked to write a letter of recommendation and you're a teacher, right? Or you're like a mentor, you're like a coach or someone that people typically go ask for a lot of things for, you're going to be writing like 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 letters. Would you like some help? If not, it's going to be the same letter for everyone, right? It's going to be the same letter for every single person as well. So you're helping the reader help you. If a student told me, Coach Tony, can you include these in your prompt? I'd be like, yes, give me more of those, because that just helps me. Again, I'm not going to copy and paste it directly in there. I'm going to modify it as a reader, as a recommender. But, right, at least I have that base. I have that base on what I can add on to in your application itself. So the tip is to give the recommender what you want them to share about you in there, so they don't have to guess. They don't have to guess at all. They're just going to help write it for you and make it easy as possible. Again, the easier you make this process, the easier it is for everyone. That's the most important thing. Okay. That being said, right, what happens after, right? So you ask life recommendations. They're going to go ahead. They're going to write a really good letter for you. They'll send it. You waive your rights, so you're not going to see it, but you trust that it's going to be good as well too. They sent it in. You'll see it, by the way, on the back end. You'll see when things are submitted, so you can relax and breathe as well too. Just to put everyone at ease, heads up, if you submitted your app on time, but the recommend is like a day late, they're not going to penalize you, by the way. So don't freak out. That's happened a few times. Again, try not to, right? Help the recommender do it on time. But in case they are late by a day, maybe two, it's not your fault, right? It's the recommender. So don't feel like, oh no, it's not going to work out for me. It'll be fine. But just make sure you are done with your apps on time is the biggest thing, right? At the end, right? At the very, very end, what do? Right? Your submitter has submitted their part. And if you ask them for a few schools, they'll submit it for the schools and they're done. After that is probably the most important thing, right? The most important thing. Go say thank you to them, right? It's one of those silly things. I don't know why I have to remind students to do that, but a lot of them don't, right? Keep in mind, this is your first round of stuff. What if you need your teacher again for something else? For maybe now, hey, I'm applying to this other program. This teacher helped me. Can you help me again as well too? How much does that thank you cost? Is it expensive? Do you have to take out a loan to say thank you? No. You come up and say thank you. If you have some disposable money, give them a little gift. Little gift cards. People love Starbucks as well too, right? As well too. And then they're gonna appreciate so much, but at the end of the day, it shows who you are as a person because you're probably gonna ask them for help again, right? Like for me, fun facts about Coach Tony's life. I still talk to my math teacher to this day. I still text him as well too. Every single year, we grab coffee together. I update him on my life. He tells me about his life as well too. And then that's pretty much it, right? Because who knows? Who knows how life's gonna work out for all of us, right? But I know I've always like respected him. I'm always a text away if he needs things. I'm always there to help him out. I've asked him for help multiple times these last few years on random projects I'm doing as well too, right? The thank you is gonna be one of the biggest things for you to help you guys out with this journey, right? With that being said, I have a small gift for you guys, if that's okay. So I put something together. Let me see if I can pull it up real fast. I put together a little gift for you guys. Second, how do I screen share here? Oops. How do I screen share? All right. Can someone let me know they can see my screen if the screen is seeable in the chat for those who are watching this live so I don't go weird as well too. All right. Thank you. A few yeses in the chat. All right. So like I mentioned earlier, the brag sheet, right? What is the brag sheet? The brag sheet is something you give your recommend. It's like a resume with a few other things that you give it to them. It's going to help them like write whatever it is. Number one, you can make your own. Is number one. Or number two, is it okay if I give you our template for brag sheets? So right here, you'll see that you share your basic information. You go here, you type in, right? My full name is Coach Tony Lee. You can call me Coach, you can call me Coach Tony. And you start filling this out for them, right? You start filling out your basic information, your college goals. Why do you ask all this? So they can incorporate everything into your application, right? Next piece is going to be your college information, your academic stuff, so they can name drop it again. They can still name drop it, right? It's not bad at all, right? Extracurriculars, what have you done? Right, I left you a few boxes to share here. Leadership roles that you guys have, any community service you have. Again, you don't have to fill everything out, right? This is fill in the things that make sense to you, right? Is the biggest one. Any worker internship again, because they can pull these. They can pull from these to help share. They might not share everything, but the things they can, they will, right? Any personal projects done, independent learning. This is a big one, personal growth. This is going to be one of the big difference between a resume and a brag sheet, because a resume, you don't really share personal growth, right? But here you do, because the readers want to readers are reading from the recommender who you are. That's the key, okay? Share your hobbies and passions. And here, this is the part I asked you guys earlier. Here, what are the things you want the recommender to say about you? You are telling them what you want to say. And here's a little pro tip. Again, most schools will ask for multiple of these, right? Multiple recommenders. So do I tell everyone to tell the same story? No. Each recommender, I'm going to give them 2 to 3 different stories per one. right? 2 to 3 different per one. And that way I know for, again, are they going to fully copy it? Who knows? That's a good chance though that they would. And if they do, now I have 2, 3 recommending adding new information to my app. So when the recommender reads it, they were like, wow, that coach Tony kid is really good. And this recommender also shared this other thing that I didn't learn about yet. This other recommender told me something else. This one told me something else. That's how you have the strongest application that you can. Okay. If you guys want it, it's free as well too. All you guys gotta do, go ahead and text us. Our team's ready to help you guys out. Text the word, let's use the word brag. Text the word brag to 949 298 6234. Go ahead and text the word brag. Our team will go ahead and send it out to you guys. This brag sheet, make a copy of your own, fill it out, and use it for anytime you need a brag sheet. And for anyone who's interested in booking a free 15-minute session with us, if you're not yet one of our coaching families and you're interested, hey, is my child on the right track? Right? My child's in 9th grade right now. Are we doing the right things? Is our class schedule set up correctly and everything as well too? Definitely go ahead and book a free coaching call with the team. Something we do. We want to make sure we can help as many of you guys as we can as well. The biggest regret families have is like, oh man, I wish I started earlier. Oh, I wish I knew that. Start early, right? Start early so you can go ahead and start so you know the information first, and then right, and then you can go ahead and be on the right. So if you, in case you guys do it on your own, we're not going to force you to sign up with us, but we're going to actually help you guys get on the right track. Because again, at the end of the day, if you're with our coaching programs or join us on these free calls, we just want you guys to win. Okay, so go ahead and text the word brag 949-298-6234 for our for the type of word brag. They'll send you the brag sheet. If you're interested in that 15-minute session, type the word coach 949-298-6234. If you want to save it, save my name. It's actually my number. So I'm seeing you guys texting me right now. So thank you everyone for tuning in there. So that's pretty much it. Let me see if no questions. We have one question here. If they ask for a specific teacher, what do I do? If they ask for a specific, you ask that specific teacher, right? As well. So that if they're asking for a math teacher, don't try to get interesting to pick the teacher itself. Someone asked, do I pick a 12th grade teacher? You don't have to, right? So people not think that, but keep in mind your junior year teacher typically is the one that are asked the most often because that's your last big year of anything, right? If you ask a 12th grade, maybe you've had the 12th grade teacher before who has seen you grow, right? But typically by the time you apply, you've probably met your 12th grade teachers like a month, 2 months max, right? They won't know too much about you. Again, at the end of the day, it's who knows you best. So typically a lot of 10th grade, maybe even 11th grade, maybe 10th, maybe 9th, but a lot of it usually is the teacher who knows you the most there. Okay, is the key here as well too. I wouldn't pick a younger grade just because that's 10-year-old you is different than 18-year-old you, if that makes sense. Okay. Someone asked a question, give an example how to give each anecdotes to each letter, right? Yeah, for sure. So let's do my example, it'll be easy, right? So for me, let's say my first recommender is my math teacher from high school, Mr. Camacho. Let's say my other teacher I'm going to ask is my leadership advisor, Mr. Ramos, is there. And then who should I ask? I think my 9th grade bio teacher was what would be a good if I had to pick 3 teachers, right? Now those would be my 3 teachers. I probably have better examples outside school, but just to give example today, right? My math teacher, my ASB advisor, and my bio teacher, right? So when it comes to my application, I filled it out. I did everything normal I did, right? But let's say for my math teacher, I'm like, man, I talked a lot about my tutoring, right? That I tutored, made money, and I made money because I want to take care of my family, which is true, right? That's why I tutored, right? But I didn't go too much into volunteering and helping tutoring, right? Too much on my application. So, hey, Mr. Camacho, right? Hey, you write my letter. He said yes. I'm like, awesome. You think on your letter, remember that time this past year, 11th grade, you did that math boot camp for the CASE, the California High School Exit Exam, and there's kids who couldn't like pass it. So you asked who can help. I jumped in and I helped you out for that. That was 4 months there, and all of our students passed as well too. I didn't get a chance to talk about that on my app. You think you can share that in your letter? Boom, something I didn't share as detailed on my app, he can share it on his letter. Mr. Ramos, our ASB advisor. I didn't really talk too much about my personality, right? On my app, I talked about being ASB president on my application. I talked about this. Hey, Mr. Camacho, Mr. Ramos, right? You met me since actually he knew me all 4 years, ninth grade to 12th grade. He was my avid teacher as well too. So he knew me literally. I had him every year. He joined the school as a ninth grade. He kept moving up, and as he kept moving up, I kept getting him every single year as well too. So he knew me really, really well. Fun story. His daughter is actually in school with my sister, who's like 13 years difference than me as well too. But Mr. Ramos, right? You see my personality grow, right? From like I was super, super shy. Remember that? I was super, super shy in ninth grade, didn't raise my hand, didn't talk. Now I'm ASB president. I'm on the mic every single event that we do. I'm hosting the pep rallies, I'm hosting the rallies. You probably saw my growth from a really like quiet to my confidence probably shot up a lot. You think you can share that in the letters of rec as well too? I would love that, right? Maybe we'll talk about other things too, but he's sharing a different side of me, a confidence. Wow, he has grown his confidence. My bio teacher, right? I'm a bio teacher. A little fun story about her. I gotta say hi to her as well too. Is I helped her win a $50,000 classroom makeover, right? As well too. So it was like we entered our teachers into a contest. I wrote it for her for how awesome she was and everything, and she won. She won a $50,000, and they revamped the whole category as well too. And then the one thing I probably asked her, because I already talked about that, I helped her win that $50 award. But maybe for her, I was like, you pushed me out. No, actually, no, I can't say that story because then if I say that you pushed me out of my shell, that's the same story as the ASB one. You see that's the same takeaway as well too. What can we do? Um, Let's say, what other traits did I do in that class? I gotta think back. This was a long time ago. But the idea is I don't want to double dip traits. I want each prompt, each letter to be like almost another PIQ, another essay that I'm writing as well too. But it's not for me, it's from someone else, right? What is the reader learning about who I am through someone else? That's what I want them to kind of write for me, is the biggest thing. Okay. Um, who had first question? Who had first question? All right, right here. Should a teacher work in school if they're in should a teacher still work in school when the kid's in 12th grade? If the 11th grade teacher retires, could that be the letters of recommendation? So in theory, yes, if there's no caveats, right? Again, I mentioned this earlier. If the school said, hey, we want an active teacher writing your letter, then that's probably you're looking for an active teacher, right? Then if your 11th teacher's gone, you got to pick 12th, 10th, or 9th is kind of what your options are, or another teacher, right? Is that, and I'm sure in that context, I will tell whoever it is, can you also share that my 11th grade teacher, I can't pick them because they're retired, right? Again, you're just kind of finding ways, again, just like we teach our students with the college application, where can you stick in information about yourself throughout the entire app so the reader, because the readers will consider it everything that you share, okay? So I would have them share that. By the way, generally, they're cool with anything. So if the teacher does retire, which happens, which happens a lot, right? And keep in bed. If you know this, if you know your teacher's going to retire, right? Hey, Mr. Mrs. So-and-so, I know you're retiring. Happy congratulations. Enjoy retirement. By the way, I'm applying to college in the fall. I will love you. Been a huge inspiration to me. You've one of my top teachers who kind of made me realize who I am and my potential and everything as well too. I will be honored if you can be one of the people who write me a strong letter as a recommendation in the fall. Would that be okay? Yes, awesome. I know you're retired, so you might not have your school email anymore. Can I get like the best personal email for you so I can email that? I know maybe phone call, but phone might be a little weird. But if you can do best email, that'll be amazing as well too. Perfect. And you get their email, you keep in contact with them, and you should be good to go there. Okay. And then I will reach out to them and same contact and tell them, hey, I'm going to reach out to you again on August 1st to make sure you are still good. And that's when I'll have my apps open, because August 1st is when all the apps open. I'll let you know the first week of like, hey, I need your help with these schools, and we'll talk more there. Okay. So that's that. Thank you, Anonymous, for jumping off the call, jumping on and off the call. It's okay to ask not to mention anything about activities, not mention about activities. I prefer not showing the brag sheet, and you mentioned them. Yeah, you can definitely not include it if you don't want to include it in the thing, because then most teachers, no matter how awesome they are, they're working with a lot of kids, right? Like each school is about 300 students ish that they're trying to like manage, or 500 students that they manage as well too. They're probably not going to know unless you tell them, is the biggest thing. So again, definitely let them know, so they can help you with that. Okay. Or not tell you is the thing. Okay. One more time for those who are interested. If you guys are interested in that brag sheet, go ahead and text 949 or text the word brag to 949-298-6234. Actually, I have a word here, the word brag, right? To 949-298-6234. If you want the brag sheet, if you guys are interested in the coaching call, just text the word coach as well too, and we can help you guys with that as well. Okay. Sounds like we have exhausted all the questions for you today. Thank you, everyone, for joining me live. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you guys. Hopefully, you guys, again, if you're interested, text word brag, number, text the word coach to number as well too. All right. That being said, thank you, everyone, for joining. I'll see you guys on the next session.